Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. In this video, we're just going to do another velocity banking review and learn to quote discover our superpower to pay off debt quickly with the strategy called velocity banking, right? And to quote Captain America, aka our good friend Steve Rogers, I can do this all day. Believe it or not, YouTube pays me about $350 to $500 a month just to do spreadsheets and upload them. It's crazy, right? And that's more cash flow than your average rental property owner. All right, let's get to it. So, just a quick story before we start. You'll notice that I have these YouTube videos about broke nurses. In fact, this one here has 415,000 views about why nurses are broke, and quitting nursing, blah blah blah. So nurses are broke. So it seems to be a kind of a common theme. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I know a nurse who's had a career for about like I think 25 to 30 years. And then she asked me out of the blue, like, "Hey, can I learn real estate investing with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And so she's owned two homes, and she's owned homes longer than I have, but she had to sell one of them because I don't think she understood the problem of debt and cash flow management. So instead of like teaching her real estate investing first, or like the actual real estate investing strategy, I said, "Listen, let's do velocity banking, right?" And then I showed her a quick demo of it, and she was like, I think she could tell that she probably could have paid off her homes in like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Because nurses make good money, right? I think she makes more money than I do. Especially when you've been working in the field for 25, 30 years, you probably have seniority and at top of the pay scale. So why is it that I, who probably makes less money than her, paid off my own personal home in less than 3 years, but she couldn't pay off any of her two homes in however long she's owned it. In fact, she had to sell off one of her homes, and that was the main one in the good area because I don't think I don't. She didn't tell me why, but in my own personal situation, I'm going to keep my homes forever. You know what I'm saying? So right. So once I showed her the velocity banking strategy, I could tell that she had this look on her face. It was kind of like a poker face, but behind the poker face, you kind of read between the lines. And it was like, what the F? I could have paid off these homes in like 7 years ago, and I wouldn't have had to like sell off any of my homes or my main home, the one in the nice $800,000 area. So kind of epiphany there about how money doesn't, once we make more money, we have to know how to manage our cash flow. You know what I'm saying? And if people who made good money weren't broke, we wouldn't have these broke nurses videos. You know what I'm saying? So it's an opportunity for me just to repeat what am I saying. In fact, it reminds me of this dude. His name was Dave in Southern California who owned a video store, if you know what I'm talking about. And that's all he would say, you know what I'm saying? But it's just an obscure reference that you all probably don't know. All right, so now let's go ahead and do velocity banking. So in order to do velocity banking, we only need two things. Number one's a budget. So we have our debt attack plan right here: income, expenses, and savings. And we're doing pretty good in savings. You got $1,200 in savings, man. That's better than the average American bear because they've done all these studies, Federal Reserve, about how most Americans can't even meet a $400 emergency. And then we have these three credit cards, right? Credit card one, two, and three. Um, and people fear the credit cards the most. That's easy. That's easy sauce. We got an auto loan, and then we got a mortgage, and then we got food, gas, insurance. So this is the only one that we're not getting rid of because these are essentially what we call, I think we would call fixed costs, right? Whereas all of this is debt that we can get rid of. And once we get rid of the debt, then that increases our cash flow. But we're always going to have to pay for food, gas, insurance and make money for that. But we're going to increase our cash flow once we pay this off. So, number one is the budget. Number two is a line of credit as our main operating account, right? So, what is a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again, right? So, I kind of see here that I had like from another exercise. Let me erase this. $800,000 line of credit, right? $100,000 line of credit, and think of it as like a big credit card based on like your home that you're providing as collateral, home equity line of credit, right? And I know what some of you are thinking: $100,000. Who would give me that kind of a line of credit? And then I'm gonna have this Master Yoda moment with you right here. Where'd it go? Master Yoda moment where it's because you don't believe it's possible. It's not possible. Now that, and I know that's not his exact words from The Empire Strikes Back. I'm just paraphrasing, but I have over probably like $500,000 in lines of credit because I know the secret of who banks lend to, who do banks give credit to. Who do they lend to? They lend to people who don't need money. And so this is really important because I know there's a lot of people out there who want to learn this strategy once they kind of get into a crunch, right? And the analogy I always make is that, hey, people only want to learn how to drive once they crash the car, right? And we got to learn this stuff before we even start to drive the car in the first place. So believe it or not, I studied velocity banking for 3 years, making 20 grand a year, thinking to myself, why the F am I even learning this? And then once I started to make more money, right, in 2021, I paid off $50,000, like $58,000 of my uh, principal of my mortgage in 1 year, and then under 3 years, whoops, it's disappeared, it's gone, right? And now I'm getting a huge home equity line of credit, and I'll make a video about that soon. $280,000, and you know what's funny? I remember when I got my first home equity line of credit at 15 grand, I was like, that's so much, right? And then it turned to 50 grand. And now that have access to more capital, I'm just like, that's not enough. I want 300. I want 500. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And so we're going to assume two things. Number one is the income is the same. Number two is that we don't have any savings. So this is like part one of what's really important of the strategy is that you're not going to have any savings. But let me go ahead and copy these expenses. You're going to have something called cash flow, which is income minus expenses, which looks like it's savings, but we got to maximize this number, right, by moving some of our debt and making our line of credit as our main operating account, right? And we don't have to have a huge line of credit. So as you can see here, if you add this up, this is $60,000 of debt. We'll say we have access to a $65,000 line of credit, although it doesn't have to be a huge one. Although the bigger the limit, it's always better to have access to capital, right? So let's go ahead and move these three credit cards into the line of credit. And again, this is $60,000 of debt. So what we do is just say, hey, we're going to move $60,000 of the balance into the line of credit. And just by simply doing a debt transfer, guess what? This goes to zero, this goes to zero, and this goes to zero. And so now we went from $1,200 to $2,559 in one swoop, right? In one swoop, 2559, right? And then we're going to put our entire paycheck, this entire $6,500 into this line of credit, or yeah, line of credit, and then we're going to take out our expenses 3940 from the line of credit, right? So what would happen is on when the day that the auto loan is due, we take out some cash and pay the auto loan. The day the mortgage is due, we take out some cash and we pay the mortgage. And then when we're paying for our general expenses, we still use credit cards, but we use credit cards up to the $2,500 limit. And the beauty of credit cards is that since we can delay paying them for about 1 month, right? The statement comes out and then we have to due date. And as long as we pay the statement balance by that due date, it's almost like delaying paying them for a month, right? So that's one way that we can take advantage of credit cards. So we never get rid of credit cards. We still use them, but we just never keep a debt balance on them, right? So make sense? Of course it does, because I say the same thing every single time over and over again. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. Paycheck in, expenses out after every single month. It's 2559.19. That's how much the debt is being reduced, and then we pay our interest. So let's go ahead and do the calculations. So next month, so the next balance is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus 25,259.19. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the average daily balance, right? Take the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, 0.09, and then divide by 12, okay? And believe it or not, my home equity line of credit, the new one I applied for, is 8.5. And originally it was 10%, the one I'm replacing. And I remember the mortgage officer, I think she was saying, oh, you poor thing. You're paying 10%. I'll get you to 8.5. And I was like, you know what? I don't really, it doesn't really make that big of a difference to me. 8.5, 10. As long as I'm doing this right, I'll just pay a couple $100 more. Although the lower the interest rate, always the better, right? And then as you can see right here, we paid all this off in 26 months. Woohoo, 26 months. We paid off $60,000 of debt. So 26 months, 60K of debt, paid off, paid off, paid off. And now we got the auto loan. Now the cool thing is that I've updated this Velocity Banking Calculator to automatically update the balance of amortized loans. So if we go here, oopsie, I screwed up, and put 26 and 26, we see we have 13 grand here on this loan, right? So we have all these cool functions, and there's something called a cash flow index. I'm not going to explain it here, but if you have a cash flow index of 30, you can definitely dump this entire loan into the line of credit, and we should be fine. So if you don't know what I mean, I'll probably make another video just on the cash flow index, or just Google it, right? Or you ask ChatGPT, what is the cash flow index, right? So let's go ahead and move this number right here, this 1333 plus 1, 3333, no, 0.99. Okay, let's move that. And by simply moving this auto loan, guess what happens? We get $430 back in cash flow. And so now our cash flow is almost $3,000, right? So now let's go ahead and do this, minus 2989.65, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, and then we'll see in month 31, right? Month 31, auto loan paid off, right? So auto loan paid off in month 31, which is 82K, okay? Now the last one is the mortgage. Again, nurses have enough money, or they should be able to make enough money where I think they make a lot more than 6,500, right? I'm guessing, actually, how much do they make? Is anyone here a nurse and you tell me how much y'all make? That'd be cool. Because I'm just thinking that they all make more than I do. And again, if you have a two-person household income where one's a nurse and you got two W-2 jobs, that's the good stuff right here. And you could borrow all the money in the world. All right. So now let's go ahead and do this. Now with this amortized loan, it's always tricky, but we always want to make sure that with a low, or so with a really high cash flow index like 213, right? And we're at 31 months. 213, 211, if it's higher than 100, we want to pay that off last. But so basically, since we already paid, right? Since we already paid, what am I doing? So since we already paid the balance of the auto loan, right? Now what we do is we pay the balance of this one. So the thing that you have to understand is that even though this is a high cash flow index, we need to pay it off, but we just need to pay it off last, right? Because anything with a very high cash flow index means that you're going to end up paying a lot of interest because the payment amount is so low in comparison to the original balance, right? Makes sense? If it doesn't, just look it up, and I'll probably make another video about this. Okay, so now what we do now is just type in these numbers in our Velocity Banking Calculator. And the cool thing about this Velocity Banking Calculator, let me go ahead and open it up, is that I just open up, or I'm sorry, I just type in the numbers and it's going to do all the thinking for me, because the trick with amortized loans and doing velocity banking is that it's very hard to calculate or estimate the payoff time, because you're still making the payment unless you put the entire loan into the cash flow and then you recover the cash flow. And if the cash flow index is very high, you definitely don't want to put that thing into a line of credit, right? So we talk about that all the time, and I make warning videos about that all the time. But let me go ahead and redo this. All right, so now what is the original balance? And if you want to know where I got this from, I got it from Renatus, and you can get this calculator too. if you register for classes, insert advertisement here. So believe it or not, I actually and what you call an independent contracted marketer, meaning I make commissions off of selling Renatus products. So if you want to learn what Renatus has to offer, go ahead and click the Google form link below. But I suspect most people won't do that because most people are pretty cheap. All right, so and why do I say that is because sometimes this has happened to me a couple of times before, where people get on a call with me and I make an offer, and then they act like so offended, and then they say things like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to do all this investigation," which really means that, "Oh my goodness, I didn't plan to pay for anything." You know what I mean? But it's okay, I don't need your money. All right, so let's go ahead and type in the numbers here, and I'm getting so sleepy, but don't worry about it. So 225,000, 000, and then this is going to be 213. What's the other number? 528.81. 528.81, and then interest rate is 3.5. And then what is the payment amount? 1010.35. 1010.35. And then our monthly income is, I believe, 6,500. Right? 6,500. Let's do this. 6,500. And the least important part is the chunk amount. But I say on a rule of thumb, it just has to be a small amount. And so if I do 6,500, that's equal to your paycheck, that should be good enough. But you could see here, oh my goodness, we paid it off in 4.9 years, right? And I'm assuming that nurses make like 9, 10 grand a month, or maybe 9, 10 grand a month with her and her husband, right? But they're still working very hard. And one of the reasons why she wanted to learn real estate investing with me is because she says she was tired of working, right? And so those nursing shifts are brutal, 12 hours a day, right? And I don't know if you knew this or not. Did I already say this in this video? That bullying culture in nursing is pretty harsh. So, oh, I don't even know why I'm laughing, just to kind of relieve the tension, right? But basically, the term eating our young, look it up in Google, eating our young comes from nursing. That's how crazy that bullying culture is. Nobody knows, like, why is it there? I don't know. But it's just what it is. And unfortunately, it gets so severe that there was a lady, I think in her 20s, who self-deleted because of the bullying culture in nursing in Ohio. Look it up in Google. But anyways, so let's go ahead and take a look at this 4.9 years and look at all the interest that we pay. Only 20 grand, even though we're estimated to pay 98. Now, when I showed that nurse this calculator, and I think she was thinking like, oh my goodness, like I probably make more than this. And one thing I asked her, right? One thing I asked her, and let me actually go to the other screen, was, so hold on one second. 4.9 years. So what's 31 divided by 12 plus 4.9? 7.48 years. 7.448 years debt free. I think she has good savings, right? And I told her, like, hey, if you have debt that's like from 3 to 6% and you're saving money in a savings account that's like 0.001%. And I know that these days they have the high yield savings accounts, but I'm just saying as a general principle, if you have your money in a 0.001% savings account, why are you not applying to your debt that's like 3 to 6%? Probably 3%. But why are you not doing that? And that I told her, like, listen, the reason you haven't done that is because if you dump all your money into the loan, okay? If you dump all your money into the loan, you can't get it back. That's why you have the savings, because it's your emergency fund. But what I'm saying is that, hey, just have your line of credit, get it before you need it, and then use that to pay off your debt, or transfer some of that principal of your debt, if it's especially a huge debt, into that line of credit and pay it off with your but well, here's the thing with the savings. If you got savings, just apply it directly to the loans, right? Or your highest cash flow eating, debts. But if you have all you have is amortized loans, just apply it to the loans and then do the next attack with that chunking with the line of credit and then dump all your money into the line of credit. And I think she got the point because even in our first session, she was like, "What's the main operating account for the average American?" She was like, "Checking." I was like, "Man, that was really quick." And English isn't even her first language. And then Velocity Banking is like, "What's the main operating account for Velocity Banking?" Line of credit. She got it. She got in 1 hour. She got it, and I think I could just see, even behind her poker face, she was probably thinking, "Holy crap! I probably could have paid off my debts like 7 years ago." You know what I mean? It's like I probably could have had paid off two paid off houses by now, and I had to sell one of them because you know I don't know if she was exactly thinking of this, but I was thinking this for her. You didn't know how to manage your cash flow, even though you make good income. You know what I'm saying? So now let's go ahead and do this. So 7.48 years debt free, and then now we have $4,000 of cash flow, and now this is where our savings are going to stack up. 4 grand, 4 grand, 4 grand, 4 grand. So like in 3 to 4 months, we're going to have 12 to 16 grand. You know what I'm saying? And now we're going to have rich people problems because nobody has 16 grand in their bank account in the savings because all our debt's paid off, right? So, all right. So now how much is this? So plus 60 plus 22 plus 225. And then that's going to be 307K of debt free for 307K, right? So, wasn't that fun? I do this almost every single day. And, I'm just like Captain America, but I don't have like super bulging muscles and I don't take a super soldier serum, but man, this is easy. I can do this all day. Right? And you should be doing it all day too, especially if you want to learn this subject. So many people like email me, "Oh, I need a spreadsheet. I need a spreadsheet." And now I've kind of like designed this YouTube channel so that nobody emails me unless they're actually serious about learning. You know what I mean? And that's why I give away the spreadsheet, not because I think it's going to help you learn, so that it's actually because nobody bothers me. But sometimes the worst part about this is that random strangers like email me and like they've never even talked to me before, and then act like I'm supposed to care more about their finances than they are. Which you shouldn't do. You shouldn't do that to anybody. I'm telling you something. If you do that to other people, people won't want to work with you, right? People won't want to work with you because you're not going to take responsibility for what's essentially in your control. Like if this were up to me, I would have people doing a spreadsheet every single day. But most people don't want to. They just like give me spreadsheet. And I was like, "Well, did you practice?" It's like, "Nope." "Well, how do you understand what you're doing?" "I don't have enough time." That's the best, lazy person's response. "I just don't have enough time." Right? And I bet you if I just had a peephole into your cell phone, saw what you're doing, I probably see you're wasting it. But then again, in this country, especially nowadays, people get offended when you tell them the truth, right? And that's why I don't, a lot of people don't like me, but people actually admit, in fact, like they admit that I'm really effective at what it is I do. In fact, I remember I read a comment that said, like, what's up with all these velocity bankers being really cocky about themselves? But I do admit this is actually much more detailed, and because the other channels are simplistic or something like that, right? I got to bring up that comment, but I do see comments like that where it's like, I'm not a big fan of this, but you explained this really well. All right. All right. Well, enough rambling for today. So, because it's 12:07 a.m. and I probably should go to sleep soon, and I'm getting so sleepy. But it's okay because I can do this all day. Quote Captain America. All right. Well, have a great 12 a.m. midnight, whatever it is, whatever day it is in the neck of your woods. Have a good night, and hopefully you're not in a position where you're making good money, and then you just realize, holy f, like I probably could have paid off my debt like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? But I'm just gonna sit here and brag that I paid off my mortgage into 3 years. But it's all good because we're all in this together. Am I right? All right. Good night, everybody.